Okie doke, folks. The time is officially 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 o'clock Pacific. So I'm going to go ahead and get going. Welcome to all of you who have joined us for this MeasureSquare 8 demo. Takeoff estimating with MeasureSquare 8 commercial. This is a level 2 demo. We will do intermediary skills versus just basic skills. So if you have, please feel free to put those in the Q&A section of the chat. And as we go throughout, there will be polls, so please participate. It's just a little something fun for you to do. And then at the end, we will give you a question. If you have something that you would like us to go over, we will go over that at the end if there's any questions. Sound good? Awesome. All righty. So first things first, is I'm going to start with a project that is already pre-drawn with all of my materials already created. Again, this is a level 2 demo, so we are assuming that we already have all of the basic skills. We've been using the program for a little while, and we will go through all of the intermediary skills. Sound good? Okay. So first things first, obviously I have everything drawn, but I want to zoom in on this single room here. As I zoom in, you can see that this wall thickness is not entirely the correct size. Everybody see that? So while the door is still connecting, notice I do have a gray portion here. This is because the system cannot recognize or build out this section of the saddle due to the fact that the wall thickness is off. Is anybody drawn where the walls didn't quite meet and they had to put doors on both sides, right? A door on this side and a door on this side. We're going to show you how to fix that today. So first things first, if you have a known wall thickness, you can simply zoom in nice and tight, select the room, zoom in nice and tight, select the actual wall section itself. Again, this will move the handle from the floor wall line to the exterior of the wall section, opening property view and changing the wall thickness. So globally, right, for the entire room, assuming that all walls are the same, I can change it here in the room section. But given that I'm only working on one wall, I'm going to go to the wall section, the upper section here. So I'm going to guess, just given the construction of this building, knowing that 5 inches is too thin, that this is probably a CMU building. And so my thickness, I'm going to guess, right, a starting off point is going to be 8 inches to follow that CMU. If I press enter, now we see that we have a perfectly overlapped wall, which is desirable. Everybody with me so far? Fantastic. Moving on, we have this upper wall here. This looks about the same as this one over here, so I'm going to do the same exact process. I'm going to select the wall section, change the wall thickness in the wall section portion of my property view, press enter. Yep, that looks about right. Now we know if this is 8 inches, this cannot be, correct? This is much bigger. So I can either guess at what this thickness is and perhaps be wrong, or I can use a different process for an unknown. And so I'm going to go through that right now. So you have 2 different ways to get these wall thicknesses correct. So first, I'm going to select the room, zoom in nice and tight, select the wall section itself, and notice it moves that handle. Then I'm going to select the handle and just start dragging until I get that arrow to about where I think the correct thickness is. If this is correct, it'll be perfectly overlapped. If I'm wrong, then I will still have to modify. But just manually stretching, I'm not sure if you can see that measurement, but it does say 1 foot. That seems to kind of track, given the fact that the right-hand side, what I assume to be a wall, is about half as thick as the CMU, which is that X hatching. So if I simply release, and I zoom in nice and tight, we can see we got close, but no cigar. So zooming in is going to increase your precision. So if I click and I drag just one more little section, there we go. Now we have a perfectly overlapped wall. If I zoom in up here, it is in fact the same thickness. Everybody with me so far? Okay. So let's talk doors. I know there are still folks out there that are tabbing in their doors, and I want to really encourage everyone to be using the door tool, which is right here in the ribbon. Everybody sees where I'm at up here, upper left. The door tool has many benefits and a lot of different functionality that I'm not sure everybody is aware of. So we're going to go through all of the benefits of using the door tool today. So first and foremost, when I click door, this pop-up window should open. If you have on somewhere unchecked this box, right, which is show this window while adding a door, then this window is not going to open. To get it back, there's one of two things. You can either press C or hold down Control and then click the button in the ribbon and it should reopen that. Then all you would need to do is check the box to make sure it opens every time. With me so far? Awesome. So if I wanted to name this door, maybe we have a very specific name for all of these doorways. Notice this one is 30. We could name those if we really wanted to. The different styles of doors are whichever one you would really want. I recommend no leaf, especially for flooring contractors, because we're not building the building. We are simply putting the finishes in after the doors have already gone in most instances. So for our purposes, no leaf serves the best purpose. It is similar to what you would consider like a cased opening. So we have the ability to trim the wall base automatically, build out that material saddle to the midline of the wall. And on top of those features, we have the ability to add a transition right on the floor. We can also add material at that cased opening. So if you have a cased opening with tile, you can now apply tile to that cased opening. This is a massive upgrade from the door tool's original inception. We can also add a linear product, think Schluter, at the door frame. This is also immensely helpful for those of you doing wall tile. And so if you know which, let's say you're working methodically through a building, you know you're going to put all of the doors that are one specific transition, you can go ahead and apply that here. And then that transition will be set as you do your door, sort of like a 2-for-1. Now, if that scares you because of the ability to accidentally apply a transition where it does not go, then just don't choose one and simply pressing OK, and you're just going to get a door. Then whatever your preset is in your system settings is what you're going to get from your default. So my default is a 3-foot wide, 7-foot tall door. But we can tell over here, right, the guillotine door, this is definitely not the same size, right? So if you have a doorway, you are unsure of the size. For those of you who are not using the door, the drop down next to door gives us the option for take off door. Take off door means you're going to select one size of opening, stretch to the opposite side of the door opening, and then simple left click is going to place that door. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate that for this guillotine door here for our kennels. So I'm going to click, stretch down to the opposite side. And then once I find that or achieve that opposite side, left click, now I have a door. Everybody with me? So for this particular building, I would make one door, copy paste down all the way down for all those guillotine doors. Awesome. So we've gone through wall thicknesses, right? The reason why wall thicknesses matter, because now our doors function properly. We've gone through doors and the benefits that the doors can provide you. And so I thought we would pivot to something a little bit more 3D. So over here, I have a restroom with a shower. How many of us in the group, just judging by the reactions, how many of us do wall tile? Is it a good portion of you guys? Awesome. I got one thumbs up. Thank you. Great. All right. So for this portion, I'm actually going to move over to my pre-populated version of this same job. Notice I have the floor already done. And if I pop it into 3D, you can see I even have a pattern on the walls. So for this exercise, what I want to do is I'm going to populate the entire shower. Excuse me while I clean up this wall. There we go. I'm going to populate this shower with product on the walls. Okay. So I'm going to use the same tile that I have in the rest of the space. And I'm just going to follow that exact pattern with the accent bands into my shower. But I want my shower tile to be full height. Okay, that's the scenario we're building to. So if I scroll down, I'm going to find that field color, that purple tile, and I'm just going to populate it on one wall. Now, when I go back over to my restrooms, right, I can see that this full height is 6 foot, 5'6" plus the 6 inches of base. For the shower, we're going to take the field tile all the way down to the floor. And then we're going to need to add this accent band. So we have one wall completely populated with the field color, and I need the accent band. So we know 5'6" minus 3 inches is going to get us this green accent band. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the tile I want to be my accent band. And instead of doing this using wall stacks, I'm going to simply replace the tile in diagram. Has anybody used this one before? Simply left click. Notice it's already been applied to my mouse. And then if I hover over top of any one of these tiles, it's going to replace the tile individually. So I know from coming over to my wall stack, right, I can count the number of courses, and then I would add 2 for the exception of the base, right? Or what I alternatively could have done is simply right click, copy this wall profile, and paste it to a new wall within the shower. And then I don't have to guess, right? It's like a cheat code. So if I replace the tile now, quick and easy, right? Then I can find my blue, right click, replace tile. Oh, look what happened. I changed before I right clicked, making sure you right click to go ahead and set that pattern. Make sense? Simply paint it in, right click. Now I have my full wall stack. I can right click, copy that wall profile, right click within the room on the floor, and then I can paste to all walls. Pretty quick, right? Then when I'm looking at this room in 3D, we can see that our tile pattern is uninterrupted all the way around the room. So good? Awesome. Moving on. How about let's put some tile on the ceiling, shall we? Let's pretend, for the sake of conversation, that there is a ceiling to this shower. Well, first off, how do I get a ceiling? In old style, right, we would have drawn a sliver as an elevation and extended out and been able to do it that way. But due to our amazing dev team, we now have this feature here called Create Ceiling, or alternatively, right click, Room Edit, Create Ceiling. Notice now I have another view. It is very clearly labeled as my top view. And let's take this purple tile, this field tile. I'm going to right click. I'm going to design a pattern with it. I'm going to zoom in because this is a very small, it's a 3x6 subway. I'm going to duplicate, rotate, snap those two together. Now I have a herringbone. Now, what do I name this as? Me personally, I name it the tile, right? Whatever my designator is, which is WT1, we can see from my product list, and then how it's laid. So herringbone. Once I get that, I can click OK. Now I have the upside down A on my mouse and it's applied. So all I need to do is click in the space. So to view this shower in 3D, I now have herringbone on the ceiling. It'd be kind of cool, right? Alrighty. So again, we are using a pre-populated version of this job because I want to go over phasing. Has anybody used phasing in past? And there's a lot of different ways that phasing can be used, right? Maybe we're giving this labor out to different crews. We can use phasing in that way. Maybe truly this building is going to be installed in different phases. Obviously, that's a really good way to use phasing. But for the sake of conversation, we are going to pretend for this example that we are going to be assigning this work to different install crews, right? Maybe we're working with subs and we have different subs that do different work. So for this example, I'm going to start by giving all of this epoxy, right? Resinous epoxy. I'm going to give all of the resinous epoxy a phase. So that way we can assume that it's going to be assigned to that crew. So within my material list, I'm going to find that resinous epoxy product. I will right click, select rooms applied, and it's going to, excuse me, put walls away. We're going to select all of the rooms where the epoxy lives, and then simply right clicking within any one of those selected rooms, I can navigate down to phase and I can create a phase. And we're going to call this epoxy, simply put. Awesome. Now, how about we add another phase for sheet vinyl? Maybe that's going to go to our sheet vinyl crew. So I'm going to navigate to where my sheet vinyl lives, right? So I have a sheet vinyl 1 and a sheet vinyl 2. So let's find sheet vinyl 1. I'm going to right click on the product. I'm going to select rooms applied. Notice the system is automatically going to center and highlight on where that product occurs. I will right click on the product right within that selected room, and I'm going to create, and I'm going to call this sheet vinyl. Fantastic. But wait, Anastasia, we have a whole extra sheet vinyl. So how are we going to add product to that phase? Great question. Glad you asked. So I'm going to right click on the SV2. I'm going to select the rooms applied. The system will automatically grab those rooms. Then all I need to do is right click, navigate back to phase. And instead of creating, I'm going to select the sheet vinyl phase. Okay. So this is going to add that sheet vinyl to rooms to all already identified sheet vinyl 1. And so we can double check ourselves at this point. Okay. So notice where my phases live up here at the top of my drawing space. I have default, I have epoxy, and I have sheet vinyl. If I want to double check myself to make sure things are appropriately put in the correct phase, there is a teeny tiny eyeball icon. Can everybody see where that lives? Teeny tiny eyeball icon. Currently, it has a red slash through the eyeball because it is toggled off. If I want to see what is actually in my phase, all I need to do is toggle that on. So I'm going to click the eyeball and we can see within the sheet vinyl phase, these are all of the rooms that have been labeled as that phase. If I navigate over to epoxy, notice the view changes. Everything that is not within the selected phase becomes grayed out. And then to view my entire job, all I need to do is click that eyeball off one more time, and I have back to the standard view. Make sense so far? Good deal. So last but not least, right, we have everything that's left in our default phase, which really isn't much. It's a couple of wall base only rooms. We have a little bit of walk-off mat in the entry vestibule, and then we have our tile work, okay? So we can assume that the wall base is probably going to go with the sheet vinyl group just because that's the only other resilient product on this job. And all of these rooms are flat lay anyway, so it just stands to reason. And then the tile work would go in a tile face. So let's go ahead and do that. So let's find tile, right click, select rooms applied, right click within the space, phase, create tile. Fantastic. And then we can navigate back to our default phase, right? We're going to use our default as our double check for ourself, meaning if there's anything default, then we're either using default as a base bid, right? Maybe we have alternates. We want to use phasing for alternates. And we're putting our alternates in another phase. And then that way everything left in default is our base bid. Or we can use it as our double check for ourselves to make sure that all of the rooms have been properly assigned into a phase. Make sense? So I'm just going to grab these last few rooms and we're going to assign them to sheet vinyl. And then last but not least, we have our shower, which was sort of hard to see. And we're going to apply it to tile. So now there's nothing left, right? There's no more rooms. So if we turn this back off, that's great. But then if we go to a worksheet and we say new, look, the system, I must have changed this already from my practice run, but you have to change the estimate by to phase. So that's an important step because if you had it estimate by phase, or excuse me, estimate by tab or estimate by project, the worksheet is not going to be broken up for you automatically. You still have to tell the system to break it up by phase. Okay. So changing the estimate by phase will allow the worksheet to pull in the data by your specified phase. So if I click OK, notice there is no default, even though default was selected, it's because there are no rooms there, right? There's no product there to associate. So now we can very clearly see what's in it, right? We have epoxy, we have welded wall base, we have resinous epoxy, floor drains, all of that sort of stuff. Sheet vinyls are just the sheet vinyl stuff. Tile is just the tile stuff and the walk-off mat. Okay. Everybody with me so far? Fantastic. So let's talk about the worksheet since we're here, right? I know a lot of you use the worksheet in a myriad of ways. So let's make sure we are talking through all of the pain points of the worksheet. So first and foremost is how do I get a view that's helpful, right? The best way to start out with a view that's helpful is turn everything on. You want to know all of the options available to you so that way you can figure out what works best for your company. So if you're not doing pricing within our system, turn it all off. What's the point of having it there? It's just added data of zeros, which, not usually that helpful. So to turn those off, you can turn them off in a myriad of ways. First way would be right click on the single column itself and say hide, but that's the really slow way. I'm of the mind of ain't nobody got time for that. So I like to go here, select columns. You can alternatively find select columns by right clicking on each one of the column titles. You can navigate there too. And then just turn off all of the sales related columns. If that's good for you, click OK. Now it looks significantly more streamlined, right? But we don't have anything in description, so we don't need that. And we don't necessarily need a labor line, so we can just uncheck those, right? Description and labor. Okay, now we're getting there. Maybe we don't want extra info. We can turn that off too. Right click, hide. So at this point, we have face, right? Labeled by floor. Item name, this is our number SKU line. just to make sure everybody understands where this data is pulling from. Item name comes from the number SKU line. Trade. If we do not need trade, we can simply hide that. We have our usage quantity, the unit that it is quantified in, the net area for said usage, and then we have two waste columns. So we have a waste ratio and a waste add-on. And the difference between the two, if you stop and hover, right? Waste ratio is going to be the correct ratio for rolled goods. So notice it's quantity minus net quantity divided by quantified. So, and then waste add-on is going to be the correct number for tiled goods. Makes sense? No, not really. Got it. It just has to do with the math behind it, just so everyone's clear. Alrighty. So what if we wanted to reorder something? That's a good question. Maybe we want net first. So all you need to do is click and select, right? Hold down that left mouse button and simply drag to the new location. Simple, right? Awesome. So let's pretend for the sake of conversation, we want to make a proposal out of this worksheet. For those of you who do that process, want to make sure you understand all of the functionality that's held within the worksheet. So notice on the right-hand side, automatically opened is this worksheet view. To name the proposal, all you need to do is highlight the top field here where it currently says proposal, and you can change it to whatever you want. So maybe this is base bin phased. Awesome. And then bill to and ship to. If you have a one-time customer, maybe you want to type in your information, right? If it's a repeat customer, you want to keep this information within the system, all you need to do is click the drop down and select what you want. If you are wanting to add information, select manage list, add a line, and put all of the data in here. Okay. Same thing with ship to. If it's a one-time address, go ahead and type it in. If you want it saved, all you need to do is click the drop down. Highly recommend having your own home warehouse, whatever warehouse you guys regularly use, have that saved in your proposal system if this is what you're going to use it for, just so that way you're not having to type that information time and time and time again. Once that information has been populated, make sure to change the tax rate if you need to, change the tax type if you need to. Notice the data in gray, blue, and green here. This is auto-populated based upon the information within the worksheet, right? You cannot manipulate this unless you change the data over here. Next is a freight line. Now, this is the one limiting factor within the worksheet view is we only have one freight line. So if you don't want to itemize your freight within your materials, right? You're using 16 different vendors. Each vendor is going to charge you freight. I would highly recommend adding that as a line item over here within the worksheet. To do so, you would just add a line and then you can move it up and down using the up and down arrows here to get it into its correct position. Otherwise, you will have to add all of those freight charges here and make one huge freight charge. Make sense? If you have any discounts or deposits, this is where those would go. And then your total, given all of the changes that you've made, would be listed here in black. Now, terms, conditions, exclusions. Do you guys use those? Anybody have any terms, conditions, or exclusion customers? Like, I don't know, we have to get paid. We're a net 30 company. Or this is anything additional is going to be time and material. Maybe if floor leveling is required, that's going to be a time and material additional charge, things like that. Instruction is a really good place for that to live. And again, if you want to type that, you can absolutely, this is a huge box. You can type that as many times as you want. If you don't want to type it a billion times, click the drop down and you can just add them so they are always here. And then you can pick and choose what you want to go out for each individual customer. Make sense so far? So we have everything dialed in the way we want, and now we want to look at our form. So if we click print form, it's going to give us a preview of what this actually looks like, what customer facing it's going to look like. Notice I have a logo and all of my company information in the header here. I will show you how to add that in just a moment. I have my bill to and ship to information that we entered from the drop downs in our worksheet here. Notice it says very clearly what this is. This is my base bid phased out. So the dark text here is going to be the file name that is customer facing, prepared by my initials, the date and time that it was printed, and how many pages are contained. If I scroll down, you can see I have a phase, all of the items contained, phase, all of the items contained, and so on. And then judging by the selections I have made, which I will go through in just a moment, I have my quantities and then my total dollar amount for that quantity. This is a streamlined version of my proposal. And then look, we have our terms and conditions and exclusions living here in the instruction section of my proposal, which was pulled in from the worksheet, and I even have a signature line. So let's pretend for the sake of conversation that we want to change what is in our proposal. Great question. I'm glad you asked. If we click printers and settings, everybody see where I'm at the top of the screen? Printers and settings will open up all of my options. This is where I can enter in all of my prepared by and company information, including my logo. Now, this does vary by print profile. So if you need to have a different logo, a different company information, just change it by your print profile and make a new print profile. Make sense? Next is terms and conditions. If you have boilerplate terms and conditions that you want to make sure goes out on every job every single time, like payment terms, then I would highly suggest dialing that information here in the terms and conditions field, because that way every single proposal, regardless, is going to get that information. Next, in my form, right, navigating over to the form tab, this is where I can turn on and off information to be shared in the proposal. Maybe I don't want to show the total summary. Just turn it off. Maybe I don't need a signature. Turn that off. Maybe I do want to show the description because that's where I'm dialing all of my specs. Turn it on. Maybe I want to show each individual price, not a total. I can absolutely set this up to whatever makes sense for my specific company. Everybody with me so far? Now, there is one really cool feature that I'm not sure everyone is aware of. And this within our printers and settings, if I navigate over to the miscellaneous tab, there's this handy dandy little checkbox that says new style forms. So you've seen what it looks like in the standard form, right? With the blue lines and the blue text and all of that. But if I click the new style forms, notice it becomes black and charcoal. So if this is a better look for you, by all means, it lives in the miscellaneous tab within your print options. So that is all I had to cover for today. So let's pivot to some questions, shall we? Um, Adding specific dimensions to the door tool. Let me go back over here. I'm going to go back over to my no product drawing. I think it's just a little bit cleaner. So are you looking for um like noted dimensions? Like if I added a dimension line from here to here, something like that, Joseph? Because what I would recommend if that was something that was needed, to draw a dimension line and then just copy paste to wherever it would be needed. Otherwise, if you needed to change a door size, the specific size, then that would be here in the property view. Okay? There's no wavy ceilings. No wavy ceilings. We're not doing that. I believe did I answer your question, Kiki? Thank you, ma'am. Yes, for specific comments to answer Dennis's question, to give specific comments about a particular project. If the intent was to create a proposal for that, right? You need that to go out with your proposal. This is where I would specifically put those. There's a lot of data available in this field, and so you could just type that in. So per conversation, oops, helps if you spell it right, with enter name. We will perform the hall first, and so on. Make sense? Company information can be held if you go file print. It's right here in this middle, the third column. This third column here. All you have to do is scroll all the way down to the bottom. Notice in the standard, if I go file print, it'll give me the terms and conditions based on the type of form that we are creating. Okay. Is that good, Bob? Let me look into that for you, Josh. I'm not entirely sure about the work orders. I'll have to do some testing. Lawrence, to answer your question about carpet base and square yards, if you use a wall stack and then apply the carpet to the wall using a wall stack, you can absolutely capture that quantity in square yards. If you use it as a wall base, if you enter it as a wall base product, you're going to only get linear feet. Say a limitation of the program. It's due to the fact of how the math in the background is thinking. What field on the product is shown on the proposal in the description field? This is a great question. Let me scroll up to one. So within the sheet vinyl, I'm just going to use the sheet vinyl just because it's on any product though. If you had a specific spec, you could put in here Mannington, Medentone. Maybe this is the SR for slip resistance, color, right? And then this descriptor line would be shown in the description in your worksheet as well as on the form. Alrighty. Any other questions? I feel like I've hit all of the ones that I saw. Alrighty. With that, I'm going to go ahead and launch a couple of our poll questions. So if you would take the time to go ahead and answer those, that would be great. Okie doke. So I'm going to go ahead and publish that. Looks like the bulk of folks are either using it, their new less than 6 months or 1 to 5 years. And then given the first option, right, which is if MeasureSquare were a superhero, what would its superpower be? The bulk of folks chose shape shifting, right? It adapts to every user. The second option was sort of tied between speed, getting things done in a timely manner, or super strength. So, and then for those of you who are still with us, if you can answer this poll question, which is how useful was this demo to your current work or use case? Our intent with these webinars are always to give you better insight into how the system thinks so that way you can get from point A to point B a little bit faster. Alrighty. Looks like most of you found it moderately useful to extremely useful. So thank you for that. And then this one is sort of giving us an idea of how you guys learn. What is your preferred learning format going forward? Do you like the live demos? Would you rather interactive labs? Do you like the video tutorials or documentation and guides like our knowledge base? How do you guys learn best? Give you a couple more seconds to get all of your votes in. All righty. So this was overwhelmingly live demos. Looks like 57% prefers the live demos. And then one last question, and this one is a completely open-ended. You're going to need to type in your answer, preferably either in the chat or the Q&A. Q&A is more helpful for us so we can go ahead and export those answers. If you just give us topics that are helpful for you going forward, what sort of topics would you like us to do for the do you have any pain points that you are hitting time and time again? You want to learn how to massage those pain points? Or do you have any topics that you find that your team is asking you over and over again? You would like us to record that session so you can send it out to your colleagues anything that you guys have as far as a topic for these webinars that maybe we can address for you. Love it. That's my favorite, McKenna. My absolute favorite. Custom tile patterns. The more complex, the better, in my opinion. If you guys have any topics, go ahead and type those into the Q&A section of the chat for us. That way we can make sure we get a webinar created for it. Alrighty. Well, thank you all for your time and attention for today. If you need us, you can reach us via support@measuresquare.com. You can also give us a call, 626-683-9188. Support is going to be option 3. Again, appreciate everyone taking the time out of your very busy days to go ahead and listen to me jabber on about advanced intermediary skills for MeasureSquare Commercial. If you need us, let us know. And happy hump day to you all. Have a good day.